Hey, it's Yehudit Steinberg here, once again, your host for the Jewish Fusion Wedding Talk Show. And today we are going to focus on Jewish wedding traditions, part of our series that we are doing in the month of June. Hi, everyone. My name is Yehudit Steinberg, and I am the founder of Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network and the host of this show, the Jewish Fusion Wedding Talk Show. During the month of June, we are running a series on planning Jewish fusion weddings, and the next few episodes that we are doing, we are in the middle of our series called Wedding Tradition Series. So for the next few episodes, we are going to be discussing some of the most popular Jewish traditions that are included in both Jewish weddings and Jewish interfaith or fusion style weddings. So I'll be showing you what they are and giving you a little history and the meaning of each of these different traditions, and also a few tips on how to adapt it into your personal wedding. So today we are going to be discussing the chuppah. And hold on one second. Here we go. Maybe. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's not, I know why that's not working. So hold on one second. Let me get my slides in order, folks. There we go. Okay, so we are going to be discussing Jewish wedding traditions, the 4 basic traditions, and why they matter. So as I've said to you before, there are more than one way to say I do. And what we are looking for here at the Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network is what works best for you. So as I mentioned, that we are going to focus on some of the main traditions. And today we're going to focus on the wedding canopy called a chuppah. And that is pronounced not chuppah, but chuppah. It's a guttural sound in Hebrew. And we will get to that in just a moment, but I do want to review the different traditions that we are going to cover in the next few episodes of this series. So here's an example of an indoor chuppah for the marriage canopy. Now, we also, in our next episode, will be talking about the marriage document, which is called a ketubah. And here you can see the rabbi is reviewing the ketubah to make sure that all the information on it is correct. It is a legal Jewish document, and we'll get into that in our next episode. So stay tuned for that. And if you know of any of your friends or colleagues who are in the middle of planning their wedding or may want to know about this information, please share it out, because we have a whole series of different aspects of of planning your Jewish wedding. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's not working that way. Okay. Here we go. The third tradition that we're going to cover is the wine blessing called the kiddush, and that is done. It's called the cup of joy, and we'll get into that in that episode. This is an example of a ritual table that was set up with a bottle of wine and a special cup that we use for couples. It's our wedding Kiddush cup, and where the rabbi says the blessing. And then at the end of the ceremony is the big smash the glass, and that's also probably the most popular tradition done in any of the ceremonies where one of the people are Jewish. So, as I said, it's a very popular tradition. So now let's talk about the chuppah, the Jewish wedding canopy. So the meaning of the chuppah, it represents the new home you and your partner are making today. And it's offering your hospitality to your guests. You, your officiant, and parents can stand. Typically, it's the couple and the officiant and the parents of both families stand under the chuppah. Now the chuppah is open on all four sides, and that symbolizes the hospitality you offer to others who come to visit. And there is a covering on the top. This is reminiscent of when the Jews were in the desert, kind of a Bedouin style bridal tent. And Jewish weddings typically take place under the chuppah. So choosing a chuppah for your wedding. So let's take a look at some of the considerations that you want to have when you are planning your chuppah, when you are choosing a chuppah. So just to review, a Jewish wedding ceremony takes place under a wedding canopy. And we call that a chuppah. It consists of 4 poles and typically a square or rectangular cloth overhead. It symbolizes the new home that the couple is creating, and the poles represent the pillars of the faith and trust on which marriage is based, and open on all sides symbolizes the hospitality and welcoming of your guests from all directions. So the first thing that you want to take a look at is, why is it meaningful for you to include this in your wedding? Now, typically, so this is your why. So it could be a family tradition, or that you're culturally Jewish and you want to have the symbol of a Jewish wedding, but you don't necessarily want to have all of the Hebrew prayers or the typical ceremony, but you do want to culturally represent what where you came from. Or you may be religious and you want to have the religious significance as well. So of course a chuppah would be definitely on the list. You may want to include family and friends. So how do you want to include your family and friends? There's a number of different ways. One of the ways, and one of the traditions of a Jewish wedding, is to have the family, the immediate family, standing under the chuppah. Now, typically, your bridal party, your wedding party, the best man, the maid of honor does not stand under the chuppah. They stand outside of the chuppah. But there are other ways that you can include your family and friends if you would prefer to have them not stand there, and you would rather just have the officiant, you, and the both of you. Now, the other thing that you may consider is maybe you want the top of the chuppah, or even the chuppah as itself, be a piece of artwork, a statement of something of beauty, adding beauty to your ceremony. You can also think about the top of the chuppah as being a piece of artwork and have something specially made that you can hang in your home, over your bed, create a quilt type piece that different pieces are made from your family and friends. It can become a family heirloom that you hand down to your children and your children's children. So there are a number of different ways and reasons why you would want to have a chuppah in your ceremony, and how, and some of the how it will play out in your decisions of what you choose. Now, there are two types of chuppah frames that you want to be aware of. And one is a freestanding chuppah, and the other is a handheld. So here's an example of a freestanding chuppah. It stands by itself and doesn't need to have anyone hold it up. And later in this presentation, I'm going to show you a number of different ideas that can start you thinking about how the look and feel. And a lot of the couples, they choose it to reflect the style of the wedding that you're creating. Now, another type of chuppah is a handheld chuppah. This is a very interesting, innovative way that we had two ceremonies at one wedding. And the first ceremony was an Indian Hindu ceremony. You can see the mandap. You can kind of see the mandap in the background. And this is the beginning of the Jewish ceremony, where we had a handheld chuppah that the groomsmen that were holding the chuppah, there were four of them, they will be holding up each one of the poles. So size matters. Who is standing under, who is going to stand under it? Well, we had a groom that was like 6'7". So you want to make sure that when you're standing under, when he was standing under the chuppah, that it was tall enough. So typically we're looking at like 8-foot poles or 8-foot height. And for your handheld chuppah, I really suggest 8-foot poles, because sometimes there have been these short poles that 4 people hold up, but it can get kind of tiresome and can start to look a little sloppy too as they start moving around, because their arms are getting tired, or they're able to move around a little easier than if it was a pole that is on the ground. And also, if it's on the ground, it is easier for them to hold on to and kind of stay in place. Where are you setting up the chuppah? That makes a difference. You need to make sure that you have enough room. And there have been a few times that couples have chosen a small space to have their large ceremony, and the different okay, so where the space is limited, and you have a large number of guests, or the guest size grows, and then you find there's hardly a space between the chuppah being set up and the front row. And it's a really good idea to measure the size and make sure that your chuppah fits within the whole setting of your chairs and setup. Now, I kind of turned this around where the height of the tallest person under it, so you do want to take into consideration that, but you also, who is standing under the chuppah is like, are you going to have families? We have had parents and grandparents from both sides, and so it's possible to have 2, 4, 6, 8. You could have 10 people plus the bride and the groom and the officiant. So you do want, and that will matter in terms of the floor space that the chuppah is. So these are some questions that you want to take into consideration when you are choosing the size. So styles. Now I want to show you a couple of styles. And hold on one second. Gee whiz. Okay, my mouse is getting a little confusing. Okay, so now I'd like to show you a few of the styles that and start having you get some ideas of what you can include or what you have to think about. So if you have an indoor ceremony or if you have an outdoor ceremony. Now I have a longer explanation and video coming up if we're going to delve deep into creating outdoor ceremony, because there, especially if you're having a chuppah, there are certain considerations. A big one is wind. And will the chuppah withstand wind? And that's that has been an issue from time to time over the years when we have officiated ceremonies that we really didn't have any input into where they chose a chuppah. And a lot of times, if you it really depends on, because of the price variation, you may want to do something that's a little bit less expensive, and a lot of the couples really like a freestanding outdoor. So that has some issues that we can have a longer conversation about to make sure that you have the chuppah that will work within the environment that you are choosing to have your ceremony. So here, let me give you let me bring on. Okay, so this is actually a ceremony that we did that was featured in Style Me Pretty on the web. And here is it's a very basic chuppah. There are a lot of stones that are piled at the bottom to help keep it up for a base. But that's one example. And then here is an example of a very a beach chuppah, and there is a white cloth across the top. Now, this is an interesting. This is really a mandap. Now, we have done quite a few Hindu-Jewish ceremonies, and so because both traditions have wedding canopy, it's really can work for both. And the vibrant colors are reminiscent of Indian weddings. Now, the difference between a mandap and a chuppah, if you take a look at the At the top here, it may be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see through the top. It is open, and the reason that it's open is that they have fire, that because they do a 7-step walk around the fire, and you can't really have a covering over the top for fire hazard. So that is the difference. However, if you weren't having a fire and you wanted to have it all be a chuppah or serve as both, you can also put a cloth around over the top or over a piece of the top where the couple is standing, and you would then have both. Now, there are many articles on the web that do show ideas, and this is a place you could go really crazy with your Pinterest and create a chuppah board, which I actually do have on my Pinterest. I will be revising that. I'm revising all of my older material because we've been doing this since early 2000, and I'm updating everything for the 2020 season. So this particular article is on the Knot, and it is 29 of the prettiest wedding chuppahs that we've ever seen. Well, you will make that a choice, but it will start to give you an idea of different ways in which you can be creative and artistic. And that's what I love, because I tend to be a pretty creative person. And also your budget, because it's some of these chuppah are quite an investment. So it really depends on your budget and the style of wedding that you are having. So I've always liked to experiment with the circular round for a ceremony, although it does take quite a bit of coordination to make it really work for all of your guests, because at some point somebody's going to have the back. And so it's a little bit more difficult, or takes more coordination between all of the between the officiant and the planners and what have you, to make it really work for your guests. So it does. So that's something to take into consideration. So we're seeing a driftwood chuppah, although I'm not really seeing a top here. And maybe, oh, yes, I am. Here's the prayer shawl. It's quite small, but it's there. An ivy and floral chuppah. I want to, this is more of a clear chuppah. You can see the cloth draped over the top. And a colorful one, kind of like the mandap that I showed you. This is a rather elegant indoor chuppah. And this particular chuppah, and we've actually had one in this style that has at one of the winery weddings that we did. But I really want to focus on this table. A lot of time, it's going to depend on your officiant. So you really have to check with your officiant on how they're going to use the table and where they want it to be positioned. For us, we tend to want it to be back, like you can see here, because the Rabbi Gershon really likes to have, he doesn't like a table in between himself and the couple. Some rabbis or cantors prefer to have a table in between the couple and yourself. But so that's going to matter as to where you're going to place the table, what you're going to do, if you're going to sign the ketubah on the table in the front with everyone, or you're going to use the table for other things. I actually don't recommend having having wine and ketubah on the same table. So, and here's another table situation. And for most of the ritual items, you actually don't need as large a table as the venue or your location may want to set up for you. You can use a wine barrel at wineries, like I think they have here, or a high table. Let's see what else. Now this is an interesting chuppah that is hung. So they really don't have any the poles, which is interesting because in the traditional model, the poles are symbolic of pillars and that hold up your marriage. But we have also done something like this at a few of our ceremonies. So it really depends. So that gives you kind of a idea of some of the chuppah that you can have. And there we go. Now here's an example of that table right in the center of the chuppah. And in that configuration, the officiants would stand on one side and the bride and groom in front. So that kind of wraps up the overview of a chuppah and some of the consideration and choices that you may want to make with your when you are deciding on having a chuppah at your wedding. So tune in live for the next couple of days. Well, we actually have 3 more live sessions that I will be doing in this series, because we did Why Tradition Matters. We did the Jewish wedding traditions. We've done Why Tradition Matters, and that is day 9. This is day 10 with the chuppah. Tomorrow we're going to go over the ketubah in the next episode, and then we're going to go over the wine blessing, the kiddush, and smashing the glass. And this is all going to be done on the Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network Facebook page. And I look forward to seeing you. And mazel tov and congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Now, if you would like to make sure you don't miss any of these great, valuable videos, then subscribe to our show and we will let you know where they are, because one of the difficulties in working with live video is actually finding where we are when we're going live. So I have a subscribe to the show and we'll let you know when each of our episodes come up. And we have just finished another in the series of Jewish wedding traditions, 4 basic traditions and why they matter. And that's a wrap. So thank you very much for joining us. And I don't know what there we go. Okay, thank you very much. I'm Yehudit Steinberg, the founder of Jewish Interfaith Wedding Network, and we'll see you next time. Next time, we're going to be talking about the ketubah, so you don't want to miss it. Now, we have had a number of videos that have gone over some of the other issues, how to pick your officiant, some of the things to consider about your wedding officiant and different options that you have, your wedding location, your ceremony location, and how to combine some of the traditions when you are having 2 or more cultures and or religions at your wedding. So that's it. We'll see you next time. This is Yehudit Steinberg. Take care.